How about now? I bet you can hear me now. You know what? It helps if you turn your microphone on. That's, customary for doing live streams. I tested everything except that. I ran through all of my settings, make sure all my cameras were working, so I could do all my switching between my, my 2 up, my 3 up. 3 up, come on, you're working, right? Oh, that's not working either. Will that work? There we go. Yeah, see? So I went through and tested all that. But, yeah. Forgot to check to see if my mic was on. Okay, so, as I was saying, with my mic off, I had been, and by the way, thank you for showing up and hanging out with me, Doris, and thank you for being in the chat to let me know that this was going on. That would have been a drag if I did like a 45-minute stream with no audio and you're just watching me like mouth words. So I had been doing a series of a lot of other characters, other people's characters, under the theme of cute, brave characters. Today I thought I would draw and paint my own character, because part of the theme is informed by what I love to draw most. And that's part of the aesthetic behind this project is little teddy bear with awesome occult skills. He doesn't have any magic. I mean, he's got this staff with these little wisps that assist him, these wisps of elemental magic. But he himself doesn't have any like wizard powers or anything. He's just knowledgeable and willing to learn. Those are his chief abilities. A willingness to learn and a deep knowledge. All right, let's do his eyes. Break out some dryer brush. And so keep a piece of scratch watercolor paper to dry out my brush on. And that wood grain on there. The book I'm working on right now about this character, or these characters, I should say, because the wisps all have personalities, is sort of the origin story of how he became this expert in the occult who travels the world and decurses cursed objects. And so I had to come up with explanations for what is that staff that he carries? Where did the wisps come from? I didn't know. I had to write all that. Okay. Now what I think I'm going to do next is I'm going to actually... First I'm going to Blow my paper, dry out the inks. My pen's away. I think I'm done with them for now. I'm going to gently erase the pencils. This is what I like about that Nanodia or Nanodia pencil lead. I can pull up on camera. I'm not endorsed by Jet Pens, but you can get these on Jet Pens. Dordoise, I'm glad you asked. Is it a mini comic or a full comic? Let me show you. It is going to be a graphic novel that comes out in 2023 from Iron Circus Comics. I'm working on a 220 to 250 page graphic novel about these characters right now. And you can find out more about it at baronvonbear.com. That's the website I have up. There's some sample pages of what the story is going to look like. And then there's some links to, join the Patreon to see some behind-the-scenes stuff. As a matter of fact, this Thursday, I'm going to be live streaming, inking one of the pages of the graphic novel for patrons only. And there's also a monthly newsletter and a Discord that you can join to learn more about this stuff. Yeah, I'm very, very excited about it. I've wanted to work on this book for a long time, so... Hey, Joseph. I will say, I don't think I gave them much more of an origin than that. It is surprising to me how full 200 and some odd pages can get, how quickly you can fill that up with other stuff. And I really wanted to, even though it was an origin story, I wanted to hit the ground running. I really wanted to move fast and get into the actual narrative arc for Baron Von Bear. And so the staff gets an origin of sorts. The Wisps definitely get an origin, but it is not, I don't spend more than like a couple sentences explaining it. All right, let's paint the Baron, and then we're going to paint the Wisps, and then I'm going to try to do some stuff with some color pens to color in the Wisps. Going. Now I can switch to my 3-up so you can see me mixing the paints. Oh, goodness gracious, golly gee. My second camera decides it doesn't want to work with me. Maybe not. Maybe I'm not going to... I'm having all sorts of technical problems today. This is the fun of doing something live. You work with what you got. I mean, this is something I say all the time as a teaching artist, is that adaptability is the name of the game. And I'm going to want to put like a rim light on Baron Von Bear to make it extra exciting. So I think I'm going to hold on painting his jacket just yet. And I'm going to break out a smaller brush. Wet up nice and... Okay. Let's do like a red rim light on him. I think I might want to put a red background on there. What's the BGM? Oh, what's the background music? This is some music that I put together in an app called Filmstro. It's a subscription service that lets you sort of take some loops and then modify them so that like different parts of the music will go up and down, so it feels a little bit more composed than just like a loop. And the reason I pay for it is because it's gives me a royalty, or rather, it gives me a license to use it on YouTube and on Twitch, so I don't get like a copyright strike against me. My brother is a musician, and he wrote a whole bunch of background music for me for these live streams, and I used them. And I still got, because of YouTube's content ID system, I still got a copyright strike against me. Like somebody, they were saying like, oh, this music belongs to somebody else. I'm like, I am literally the only person on the planet who has these files. I mean, unless my brother went behind, went and like put them on some server someplace, which I don't think he did. Nobody else has access to this. I don't understand how I could have, or unless he made like some highly derivative music, which I don't think it was. So I decided to just invest in some music that wasn't too obtrusive, wasn't too overpowering, but felt like it was actually composed in some way, if that makes sense. Yeah, I should get Jersey Dro's legendary bass manufacturer to make some music for I'll tell you what, Joseph. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but I've shown my students a lot of the material for Baron von Bear as I've been working on it, and they all say, and I think they mean this as a compliment, that this thing is screaming to be made into a Netflix series. And to which I say to them, I don't really care if it gets turned into I'll take the money. I'll certainly take the money. But my first priority is to make this into the best comic I can make it. And they say, oh, sure, old man. Everybody wants to have a Netflix series. I'm like, well, sounds like a lot of back and forth, a lot of responsibility that I'm not really up for. Anyway, my point is if that happens, this is my promise. I will try. I'll make this part of the negotiation to say, I want Jersey Dro's to do the music for at least one part of the story. So, Dortus, this music is I'm using tracks that other people have access to and can modify their own. So it's entirely possible you've heard some of this music someplace else. I wouldn't be surprised to find out some game manufacturers or somebody use this for their project. That would not surprise me. Okay, so now I got to think about what are the colors of the wisps who are jumping out of each part of the staff. I'm letting this dry for now. I'm going to put in a darker shadow on him in a minute, and I'm going to actually add some green to it because I want it to have a little bit of contrast with that red. Okay, so this is green's section. And then blue. So the idea for the wisps, I feel like I would not be able to tell you what the origin was of where did I come up with the idea for them. Other than, I mean, for one, the name, I've always been sort of intrigued by the whole concept of the will-o'-the-wisps, these little balls of light in swamps that distract and beleaguer the unweary. But as far as them each representing a different kind of magic, so a comic that made a pretty big impact on me as a child was the DC comic The Metal Men. And the premise was, if you haven't heard of the Metal Men, it was basically this Reed Richards sort of 1950s scientist. I think it was Doc Magnus, if I remember right. He created a team of sentient robots who can shapeshift and have properties based on an elemental metal. So there was lead, and there was gold, there was mercury, platinum, and tin. And they could all do different things. Like tin was, I forget what tin was, like the smallest and weakest of the characters, but mercury was basically like this, always zooming around in this kind of liquidy way. I wouldn't be surprised they made a new one, actually, now that you mention it. I mean, it was a really cool concept. The characters have been around forever. They've been used in a lot of different eras of DC Comics. But as a child, I really responded to that concept of like, oh, like different metals have different properties, and it kind of reminded me of like the cartoons I was watching at the time, where like GI Joe, everybody had their own primary military specialty, and the Transformers, they all had a function, they all did something that nobody else could do. That was a very very kind of appealing idea. But in the Metal Men, they like made it as like a property of their being, right? Because gold is gold, he can do these things. It wasn't just a skill he learned; it was like part of who he was. So I've always been intrigued by that, and one of my the first finished comic I ever made in 5th grade was called Silver and the Periodic Forces, and I expanded the idea to it like it's the whole periodic table. He can summon warriors representing each of the chemical elements. It was totally derived from Metal Men. I won't deny it. I remade that comic in 2005, like with an updated sort of concept and premise, but the central idea was still the same. And you can actually get that on my website, jdrose.com. You can find a link to the book. But anyway, I'm going to get a little bit of green in here. A little bit of green. For some shading. So, when it came to Baron von Bear, as I was working on the various iterations of the story, I came up with this idea of like, well, what if he had these little... Oh, I know where the second idea came from, for inspiration for this. There was a cartoon in the 1980s, because most of my inspiration comes from that era and that type of entertainment, called The Galaxy Rangers. And the Galaxy Rangers was basically a Wild West sort of Keepers of the Peace story that took place in deep space in the future. And there was one character in the team named Doc, and Doc had this little iPad sort of device, and it had these 3 little light creatures that were sort of like inspired by Bit from the Tron movies or Cursor from Automan, a sentient little electronic being who could go into machines and diagnose them. That was what their function was. And they all had personalities. They all talked to Doc. They didn't have like a lot of difference in their personalities. They all felt pretty much the same, like little cheerful sprites kind of thing. So I thought, well, what if I took that concept, mixed it with the Metal Men concept, and so there are 4 elemental aspects of magical energy, and their powers come from who they are, like the Metal Men, but their personalities are also kind of like a reflection of what kind of magic they possess or can do. So, and can I telegraph that into... Let's make sure I'm testing my paint first. There we go. Okay, we're good. Can I telegraph that into the design language of their designs and how they move and how they behave, so that like Violet, for instance, the one who moves in those zigzaggy lines, she has cleverness and speed magic. Orange, who's the fire one, has heat and strength magic. Heat, strength, and courage, I should say. And Blue, who's the jaggedy one, has time and coldness magic. And Green, who has like the more organic-y, warbly lines, has wisdom and health magic. And they can lend their magic to Baron von Bear in different ways. So like if Baron von Bear needs like a little bit of extra dexterity, he can call upon both, Orange and Violet. Now he can like traverse some dangerous areas. The Element Coin series is pretty cool if you haven't heard about it. I made a periodic table display for our set. I've not heard of that, no. There is something about the periodic table that almost, it feels like it's suggesting a magic system, right? Oh, we need a little bit of green in there. Okay. Now I need to do a little bit more, a little green with the blue, and I think we're set on Baron's suit. Indigo. There we go. Baron's done. Now I'm going to take a little tiny bit of this green color and put it on his suit there. It's like I said, I'm going to put a red light behind him, I think. Now I'm going to paint the wisps and then ink them in and I'll be done. I might be done a little early today. Yeah, I hear you, Dordos. Like this idea of like, and I'm not going to try to put words in your mouth, but like to say yes and to what you're saying there is maybe the concept of, well, you're the gifted one, you're the chosen one, and you know, this is prophecy. I've done stories like that too. I knew that was something I didn't want to do. I wanted this to be something where a character has to grow in some way and has to like really. I don't want to say unlearn because I don't want to borrow that language. But what the story I'm working on with Baron von Bear is more of one where he thinks he's got it figured out. He thinks he knows what he's doing, and he discovers he's very, very wrong. And he's got to. And how does he deal with that? How does he? Does he say to heck with it? I'll throw up my hands, or is he going to say, well, okay, well, how do I adapt to this? And so, instead of being born with it or learning about it, he starts out at like expert level, but finds out that he was absolutely wrong about his expert level. I'm going to try to pull some of that purple out of there later on. Right now, I'm just going to keep painting. I think violet goes behind these two, the way I have it drawn. Okay. There we go. Okay, let's do some of the other wisps, and then I'll ink them in. Always test your paint. Okay. But yeah, I on the topic of like the idea of like what kind of magic are you gonna do? You know, are you gonna do the kind that you have to study, or are you gonna do the kind that you just like have? I actually had some conversations with some of my friends who write more fantasy work than I do. My stuff is fantasy in the sense that it's make 'em ups, but I would not call my stuff like properly of the genre of fantasy. And how do they make the distinction? I think one of them said to me that a sorcerer like has the magic in them, and a wizard has to study. If I think I might have that reversed, I'm not sure, but they at least point out there's a distinction between like the types of magic users who have to study their craft, have to like research and look things up, and then there's the kinds that just like have the magic in them. And again, Baron von Bear is neither. He's not a sorcerer at all, or a wizard. He's a scholar. What would that make him in a D&D campaign? Time for orange. Almost there. A little bit more up at the top, I think. Now here's the real trick. Am I going to be able to erase some of those blue lines without erasing the paint? Let's find out. Take my trusty eraser. Very gently. I'm hardly touching the paper. Just that is the nice thing about that blue line lead. It just lifts right the heck off. Look at that. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy about this. Okay. I think where I have the paint on a little thicker, it's not coming off as much, but that's okay. Not that crucial. I don't think I'm going to sell this painting or anything. More for me. There we go. So now, we're in the final stages. Get blue ink on my multi-pen. See, this is part of that thing that got me really excited about the wisps as a design problem. is that how can I communicate their personalities and their movement and in the shapes, lines, and colors that I choose? I talk about this a lot in my comics classes with my students. And like, so with Blue, because she is the time and cold magic are under her purview, I thought, well, she would be very brittle. Her movements would be very brittle and slow and meandering. Sort of like there's something ancient about her movements. And then I even tried to emphasize the differences in their personalities by the shapes of their eyes. This is something that a few people who have done fan art have picked up on, is that Blue's eyes are very horizontal. And then we get to Violet. I'm gonna close up my paints now because I'm not painting anymore and I don't want to smudge my inks. With Violet, everything is angular, deliberate, and fast. Because she has cleverness magic, she also has a very biting wit. Gives the Baron a little bit of the business every once in a while. Now, I didn't put these ink lines on first because I didn't test to see if these are waterproof or not. And actually, I should. I should have waited because I wanted to put a red paint in the background. I might find out the hard way that these inks are not waterproof. Okay, and Violet, we need your eyes. So Violet's eyes are more angular. We get to orange. Pen. Now, because orange is heat magic, his movement is represented as more of like a fire trail. And his personality, because he's also about strength magic, is he's like. And notice I'm using different gendered pronouns for them as sort of a way to represent like the aspects of their magic. Like he's loud, brash. Talks in giant words, like not like multisyllabic words, but more like when he talks the dialogue in his word balloons is taller. He's the ghost of Christmas present. That's how I see him. Big, joyful, jolly character. Very extroverted. His eyes, taller. Almost like exclamation points. How I see them anyway. Finally, we get to green, who is wisdom and health magic. So their movement is much more organic. Imagine like roots of trees. Come on, pen, work with me here. Almost out of ink. Come on, I know you got ink in there. Good thing I have a backup green. There we go. And green's eyes are a little bit calmer. Just represented as dots. Now let's get a little bit of red paint behind them, and then I'm going to call this one done. Reminder for those joining the stream midway. If you're wondering who this character is and what I'm doing with it, you can go to BaronVonBear.com. Baron as in the title, the title of nobility. Bear as in the animal. Von, V-O-N. I think that might do it. There is a painting of Baron von Bear and his little ghost friends, otherwise known as the Wisps. And like I said, this Thursday I'm going to be doing a live stream for patrons only, where I'm going to be inking my first page of the graphic novel. Not page number 1, but the first page I'm going to ink of the graphic novel. You can see some behind the scenes stuff and also watch how I'm making it and how I'm trying to make this project manageable as something I really only get to do about 10 hours a week. So it's going to be a wild race to get this book done in time. I have about a year and change to do it. And then I also want to point everybody once again, BaronVonBear.com. I'm going to pull up the news section on Cartoon Crossroads Columbus, because the reason I bring that up is, I work for them. This Friday, if any of you all are around and looking for something to do Friday evening, I'm going to be doing my comics game show. Super Comics Challenge is going to be happening Friday night, July 9th at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Pacific. And we're going to have, I already subscribed. Ben Toll, CM Campbell, Sequoia Bostic, and Jeremy Stoll are going to be the contestants. It's an interactive drawing game show where it's playful, it's fun, it's silly, but it demonstrates some key principles of how comics work. So it'll be a lot of fun. You can watch it live on CXC's YouTube channel or CXC's Facebook page. But then the other place I hope you will look is BaronVonBear.com to learn more about this graphic novel, so you can learn more about this character that I painted today. There's how he turned out, everybody. All right. Well, I'm gonna wrap this one up a bit early, and I'll be back next Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern, 12:30 p.m. Central, 10:30 a.m. Pacific. Thanks for hanging out with me and chatting with me. And until next time, everybody, I have been Jersey Droz at BaronVonBear.com, rss.jdroz.com for everything I make. Okay, bye.